When we have many, many outcomes, sometimes it's easier to construct what's called a sample space to help us determine the probability of an event. So let's say I have two number cubes, like two dice, and I want to construct a sample space for rolling those two number cubes, those two dice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a chart. So one dice, I could roll a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. And you should be making this in your notes, okay? The other cube, I could roll a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6, right? So let's say I roll those two cubes at the same time. I could get a 1 and a 1, right? Each cube could have a 1. Or one cube could have a 1 and the other cube could have a 2. So what I'm doing here is I'm listing all the possible outcomes for rolling the number cubes. So I could get a 1 and a 3, I could get a 1 and a 4, I could get a 1 and a 5, I could get a 1 and a 6, or the first cube could have a 2 and the second cube could have a 1. So go ahead and just fill in your sample space. I know it takes a long time. I love it as much as you do, trust me, but it is a valuable thing to know how to do. So we are going to take the class time to do it. All right, and you can pause the video if you are not done constructing your sample space yet so that you have that in your notes because you're going to need it. And then restart the video when you're ready to go on. Okay, so I constructed the sample space. Now, that means that each of these in parentheses, those are all options for a possible answer. Those are all possible outcomes of rolling two dice. Now, I need to find the probability that the two dice have a product of 12. So product means multiplication, okay? So I'm going to look here and I'm going to mark every option where there is a product of 12. So 1 times 1, no. 1 times 2, no, no, no. 2 times 3, 2 times 4. 2 times 6 equals 12. So there's one option. I'm going to go through 3 times 4 is 12. That's another option. 4 times 3 is 12. There's another option. Oh, and 6 and 2 is 12. So that's another option. So I scanned through the sample space, and what I was doing is I was looking for if I multiplied the two numbers together, would I get an answer of 12? Those 4 that I circled have an answer of 12, a product of 12 when they are multiplied. So what I would write to answer this question, I would write that my probability of finding a product of 12, and you should write this out, probability of finding a product of 12, and here we're going to do the fraction, okay? The number of favorable outcomes that I want, there are 4 of them. The number of total outcomes goes on the bottom. So there are 36 possibilities here because I have a 6 by 6 array. 6 times 6 is 36. So I have a 4 out of 36 chance of rolling two dice and getting an answer of 12. And of course, I'm going to simplify. I can divide these both by 4. So I have a 1 in 9 chance of rolling 2 dice and getting a product of 12. I can also express my probability, so that's one way. I can also express it as a fraction, or as a percentage rather, sorry. Numerator divided by denominator times 100, and I get about 11.1%. There's an 11.1% chance that if you roll 2 dice, you will get a product of 12. So when you've got all that written down, I want you to, for your second problem, you've already got the sample space drawn. I'm not going to make you draw another one. Using that same sample space, find the probability that if you roll 2 number cubes, you'd get a situation where the 2 numbers together, when added together, have a sum that is odd. So, for example, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 is an even number, so that's not going to be 1. Oh, I better use a different color. We'll circle these ones in blue. 1 plus 2 is 3. That's an odd number. Because remember, your odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So pause the video and go through this sample space to figure out which options have a answer when you add them together that is odd, and then figure out the probability, and then restart the video to check your work. All right, so I'm going to go through here and I'm going to circle all the ones that have an answer that's odd. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17. Is that right? Let's see here. Did I miss any? 2, 4, 6. Making sure I didn't miss any. 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. 5, 7, 9, 5, 6, 7, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so again, my probability, the sum is odd. I have a 36 on the bottom, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 of them have a sum that is odd. So my probability is 18 out of 36. I'm going to simplify. I can divide these both by 9, and I end up with 2 over 4, which I can simplify again by dividing them both by 2. And so I have a probability of 1/2, which I can also express as a percentage. I already know it's 50%, but again, 1 divided by 2 times 100 equals 50. So my probability of getting a sum that is odd is 1/2, which is the same as 50%. So that's how you construct a sample space and how you use a sample space to find probability.